Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Let's Jaliawala. Let's is leadership, enterprise and technology. We're meeting people who are inspiring leaders, who are enabling many enterprises and who are great advocates of technology in Pakistan. I happen to know them personally and I believe their voice needs to reach out to all of you. And I'm very happy. In fact, I'm privileged to be welcoming somebody whose profile is never ending, whose experience is terrific. When you think of telecom, you have to think of this man. And telecom in Pakistan has benefited greatly from his contribution. He's a senior international executive with broad experience in board level strategy, business and operations management, relationship management, mergers and acquisitions, people management, technology, business startups, something that we hear very frequently these days, business restructuring. How do you change the direction? Turnarounds, corporate finance, remote management, telecom, mobile financial sector, and other services to do with mobile. He's currently the managing director at ICE Advisors Limited, ICE, focused on mobile broadband, mobile financial services, and adjacent technologies in mobile. He's also assisting, helping, really being there for many young entrepreneurs in this country through his wonderful team called the Teamup, and helping the National Incubation Centers perhaps create the much needed enterprises that this country needs. I can go on and on about the profile, but enough said. Welcome. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Umair. You make me sound really old.
No, not at all. But with all of this profile, the question and our first question to all the guests has been, how do you define yourself? Of course, the world would define you with the titles and what you've done, but who is Zouhair for his own self?
So I think it's a very complicated question, but the way I look at it first is that I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son, and then I do all the other stuff that you described, or some of it as over the years. But I think it's very important to center yourself, and I think for me that center is my family, mashallah, my wife, my son, my daughter, and life sort of, I've tried to make life in a way that I can follow their lives as well, because you can get very busy in your own.
And what do you mean by that you can follow?
So let me give you a small example. When many years ago now, 20-some years ago, I moved to London, and my job definition was a head of operations of Europe, Middle East and Africa, which by definition meant that I was always on a plane somewhere. And people would ask me often, how old are your children? And I would say about that old, because I would see them sleeping when I left, and I'd see them, when I came back, they'd still be asleep sometimes. But I made up my mind that what I would try and do is, at least if I couldn't be there all the time, because of course you have to earn a living, at least be there for some of the most important things in their lives. Or unki lives or aapki lives mein, obviously there are differences in priorities.
Yes.
So I sometimes am very pleased and very pleasantly surprised when they remind me that I was there for their first drama, or their first singing, or their first time on
you
stage.
could make it to those occasions.
And I tried as much as I could. They always remember me with a wheelie bag coming in or going away again. And that, I think, gives me a reference point. Say, that's the important part of what I am in the world.
It's fascinating that out of all of that...
Not to take away from the fact that despite all of that, I think 90% of the work was done by my wife, who obviously was at home and took care of them and did what needed to be done. But I tried to do what I could to be there.
The wives are the best team members for exactly
that. If you can get a person who wants to do all of that with you, I think you're the most privileged person in the world.
Wow. So after all these years, and now that you're back here, what is every day like for you? From the time you get up till the time you hit bed, we just want to know what are the big chunks in the day.
Yeah, I think it changes over a period of time. As I described, uz zamane mein it was getting on a plane all the time. The last year and a half, I think it's been a little different. I've had more control over my life, my timings and so on, so I can manage them. I still try and lead a pretty disciplined life. I'm up by about 7:30 or thereabouts. If I'm not in an office or I'm not at the National Incubation Center and I'm, let's say, working from home that day, I try and be online on the desk or wherever I am between 9 and 9:15 in the morning, which is typically what I've been doing for most of my life. So I think that discipline is.
And is that the important. Weekend ritual as well?
The weekend ritual is more relaxed. I tend to sleep in a little bit. It's more relaxed. As I said earlier in our talk when we were off camera, This last year has been a bit of a roller coaster in so many ways. We moved houses, we moved countries, we moved jobs, and so on. So I wish I could play golf, or I was going running or whatever, or to walking. But it's been a bit varied in that sense. But again, between breakfast and lunch, make sure you have the right meetings, the right conversations with the right people. Typically, because I still have links back into Europe and so on, so I divide the second half of the day into my conference calls and phone calls with people in UK or Europe or wherever they are. I still have board engagements in Ireland, in the UK, and so on. So I try and divide that time, because they've just got up, it's there 9 o'clock in the morning, and so I face the day like that. And I try and see if I can finish by about 6 o'clock in the evening now, which is a privilege now, but over the years it's been madness.
And it has been madness over the years.
It has been madness.
Yeah.
I mean, but when I used to work at Mobile Inc., we were trying to resurrect the company from a lot of different things. And typically the day would start at 8 a.m. in the morning at my breakfast table. उस ज़माने में अभी iPads and ये चीज़ें इतनी common नहीं थी. I'm talking 15 years ago. So there were probably 5 or 6 newspapers on my breakfast table. So as I went through breakfast and had coffee, I would skim through all of that just to make sure I knew what was going on in the world. And then the day would last till about 8 in the evening, followed by probably an entertainment, dinner out somewhere with friends or so on. And typically the day would end at about midnight, and the cycle would start again. So it varies through your life and what you've been doing.
I know your profile is so full of achievements, and you take one out of it, and that's what the ambition for most people is in their lifetime. Success for me would be to get that car. Success for me would be to get that job. And having done all of it, I want to know, what is success for you? How do you define success?
I think success, if I look back on it, in my view, would be able to say that you've been true to yourself. There are certain principles that I believe that every person should live by. And it's about sticking to your integrity, sticking to an honest view of life, and an ethic of work, hard work. It gets you further than if you didn't work hard. And then, I think that's what I would value the most in my life. That's for me, if I've been true to those things, then I've been successful. Baki cheezein, things happen, God has been kind. I've had various opportunities. There are various times that I've taken huge risks in what I wanted to do. And Allah ka karam, it has worked out well.
Your definition of success has work in it, which is very interesting for millennials and then the Gen Z today, which has somehow loved the term smart work, which nobody knows what it is, but how do you contrast the two?
So it's just, work is still applying yourself, applying your mind and your body to whatever is required. The methodologies have changed over the years. I mean, in our case, if I look back over a 36-year career, it was more about travel, more about going out there, meeting people face to face, and it involved more effort. In today's world, of course, with the technology which has come about, with things like FaceTime and Skype and GoToMeeting and all the rest of it, smart work is more possible in that sense, because you are able to interface with the same people but save the time on the journey and the drudgery of it. Also, I think work has changed because instead of having millions of books and reference points and so on, it's all on your phone or your iPad, and the accessibility to information, to knowledge is that much faster, more convenient. You can still be sitting in your bedroom or on your sofa or on wherever and be able to access all of that. You're also able, while you're in the backseat of a car, and I emphasize backseat of the car, or wherever I'm sitting on a sofa, to be able to... Are you
suggesting we should all Kareem our way to the office and work on the back seat?
Well, the danger is that there are people who will insist on driving and still trying to work. And I think that is suicidal, that is dangerous. So if you are planning to work, if you're fortunate enough, somebody is driving you, whether it's your personal driver or a Kareem or an Uber, I think it adds to the efficiency again, because I've done that in my life. I've faced commutes where it's 30, 40 minutes to work and back. And smart work is being able to access your emails at that time, messaging, WhatsApps, and so on. So the nature of the technology has changed, but I think as I emphasized in my previous answer, was that the work ethic is what carries you.
Relationships, one word that everybody thinks about. जो expats होते हैं वो भी रिश्तों के लिए वापस आ जाते हैं. People who are growing up are so in desire of having healthy relationships in life. What have relationships meant for you in all this journey?
I think relationships vary, of course. There are business relationships, there are personal relationships, there are friendships. You got to be, again, I will emphasize the same thing. They've got to be based on true fundamentals, respect for the other's authority, respect for the other's talent, respect for the other's freedoms, and so on. Certainly in personal relationships. Professionally, again, you've got to be able to respect the other person's time, their skill sets. And I'm very happy to look back over the years and say, look, relationships have actually, all of them have been founded on long terms. Okay, so I can look back and say I've known this person for 40 years or 50 years, and I have school friends still we are in touch with today. Technology makes it that much easier. But I think relationships have to be again founded on honesty, truth, and respect for each other.
Great. And what would you, just sort of building upon this question to get more meat out for the audience. So there are relationships that we are born with, and then there are relationships that we make. And the standard are the friends, of course, and everybody needs them, that support group. But in the professional circuit, you need more than that. And so quite often we'd hear the advice, you're the average of 5 people you hang out with the most, your net worth is your net worth. And somebody would say, hey, get a mentor, hey, you don't have a coach. What about these relationships? Would you recommend professionals to grow with these relationships, sort of pick them on the way? So minus the family and the friends who are there as default, what more do you need for a great career?
I think you exactly picked it right there. I think for any young professional, you've got to be able to build some relationships which are very fundamental in the way you grow yourself. So I will quote, amongst so many others that I've been affected by, impressed by over the years, is a gentleman called Munawar Hamid, who became the CEO of ICI Pakistan. And then he was one of my bosses at ICI. I think he had an amazing influence on my outlook to life, my ethics, and so on. And I'm happy to report we're still dear friends over the years, and it's been whatever it was, 30 some years, 35 years now. I think similarly, you've got to work on other relationships around you, people who mentor you, people who are sounding boards. And I think that's very important for young people as they grow and attempt new things in their life, to be able to, in today's life, pick up a phone and say, I'm thinking of this. What do you think? I'll give you an example. My own son, who's mashallah in his late 20s, recently was offered an opportunity to change his job and move into a completely different sector. And of course he asked me, he said, Baba, what do you think? I gave him my opinion. But I also said to him, here's 5 or 6 people that I respect a lot, older people, and some not as much and not as old as I am. But I said, call them, get their views as well. And he did. And as a result of which he was able to make a decision which he's very happy with now. He's changed the sector, changed the career path. So it's very, very valuable that you look at stuff like that as important relationships over your period of life.
Great advice there, to pick up the phone and ask, what do you think about it? I'm sure you have many, many stories to tell. If I ask you, what are the 3 most important stories from your personal and professional life, what would those be?